Well, that's interesting that you included both aspects, both translation and interpreting, because I do both more or less in an equal proportion. And I would say for translation, of course, a tool that is essential to me is a good CAT tool. I use Strato Studio as my main CAT tool, but I also use other tools that are required by clients. So depending on what the client needs, I will use that tool. I find that that is essential. There is another tool that I like to use, which is speech recognition. I use Dragon for dictation, and that helps me, put together my ideas before I start translating. And it is a different workflow, but one that I find very interesting and very helpful with certain types of text. For interpretation, I use a variety of tools depending on what I need to do. But I use tools, for example, for glossary extraction and preparation. I use tools to help me learn terminology, to make, so after I have my glossary, I will use a tool to create flashcards, electronic flashcards or digital flashcards that can help me learn that vocabulary or that terminology faster, and that I can go back to afterwards if that topic comes up again, let's say after a few months or something. I also use, when allowed by clients, I use ASR, automatic speech recognition. And there are several tools that I use for that, depending on what I'm doing, what the language is, because some of the tools are only available in English. And I also use, for example, because I take a lot of notes during whenever I'm interpreting. I'm a conference interpreter, so I will always be taking notes. And to do that, I use a tablet, and I have to digitize those notes afterwards. I also use a regular notebook sometimes. And so I also use OCR or scanning to make sure that I capture all of those notes that I made so that I don't lose that information for future meetings. So those are some of the things that I use in terms of software. And for hardware, I always like to go out and see what's out there and what can help me. I always recommend that everyone gets a mouse with multiple programmable buttons, because that makes your life so much easier. And in general, my approach to getting hardware for both translation and interpreting is to think like a gamer. I like to go to the gamer section on the website where I'm buying hardware, or the physical store, just because they have the best stuff. And it can be very helpful for us. I don't really use those tools for my work yet. I like playing with them. I'm familiar with them and I've been playing with them. I just haven't found them to be ready yet for me to use in production use cases. So I will play with them and I will go and check what they would give me and things like that. I've been playing with ChatGPT and Bard specifically, but I haven't found them to be ready to save me time, which is always my ultimate goal, or to improve the quality of what I'm doing in actual translation or interpreting scenarios. Sure. Well, I'm not an engineer. I'm a linguist like you. So I'm someone who was trained in to be a translator and an interpreter and an English teacher, by the way. That's something that I did for a long time also. And I was a teacher trainer for a long time. And I've just been curious about technology forever. So that's just a personal thing that I have. I like technology, and above all, I like making my life easier. Whenever there is a task that I have to do, if it's very repetitive or if it's something that is taking a lot of time, I always think, is there a better way to do this? Is there an easier way to do this? And that is always the beginning of my quest to go out and check what's out there, what's available, to try and make my life easier. And so I have tried many things that haven't worked out in the end. But in that journey, I have also found a lot of gems, a lot of jewels, things that are not necessarily advertised as or produced specifically for translation or interpreting, but that can be useful for us as well. So that's why, for example, my son is a gamer. So the first time that I saw him buy a mouse with multiple programmable buttons and I saw what he could do, I thought, oh, that's for me. I need to have that. And so I started using that. I learned, for example, just basic things that I knew I needed or that would make, again, my work easier. Things like text expansion or learning about regular expressions. Always in the interest of saving time and being more efficient. So no formal background, but I like to go out and read everything. For example, right now, I was thinking this morning for ChatGPT, I think many of us are experimenting with it and we know where to find it and we know where to ask questions. But several weeks ago, I decided that I needed to understand how it works. So I started reading the documentation behind it. Instead of just playing with it. I had been playing with it already. So that's the kind of thing that I like to do. There's something that I like or that I think that I need, then I feel like I need to understand it better, and I'll go and read more about it. Well, those would be two different things. Maybe the most complicated would have been not because of the actual, terminology or anything like that, but because of the situation. I was called to do to interpret at an autopsy, high-profile autopsy live that lasted 4 hours, and I had to stand by I was helping the pathologist and two other coroners who were doing the autopsy, and I had to stand next to them the whole time while they were doing this. And the interpretation was for a group of human rights advocates who were observing from a distance, from a safe, nice distance. So that was very challenging, because not necessarily because of the length or even the topic, just because of the setting. Just the setting was disturbing in itself. The smells, something that you don't even think about, the sights and the smells related to that. Even though I do a lot of conference interpreting for medical conferences, this was very different, being right there. So I have to say that must have been the most challenging one. And for the most fun one, I had the privilege of interpreting several times for Patch Adams, who is a famous doctor turned clown. And that was always a lot of fun. The actual interpreting job itself, plus everything that happened backstage, because he is just a funny person and someone who's a people person. So it was a lot of fun working with him. Well, there are several things that one can do to stay up to date. The most obvious one may be joining an association and taking advantage of all the resources that association offers. I am currently the chair of the ATA Professional Development Committee, and that's something that we strive to do. We listen a lot to what ATA members say in terms of things that they're interested in, and we try to bring them great speakers, great topics. Associations like ATA, for example, also have publications like the Chronicle. There's a blog. And one thing that I think is very, very important is attending conferences and talking to others. So I would say having a clear strategy for professional development is key, because you could be there just, at the mercy of whatever comes your way. And that may be good and it may be fine, but it would be a lot better if you make a plan and say, this is a skill that I want to develop. Where can I learn more about it? Then you go out and look for conferences, talk to people, people who are already doing that thing that you want to be doing. That's always very, very helpful. And that doesn't necessarily happen only when you are starting out. It also happens during the course of your career, even after you're established, when you decide that you want to start doing more of something or you want to pivot into something else. Well, first of all, I'm very excited about this panel, about joining the panel and being in the conference and being part of a voice, adding my voice to many voices who are out there advocating for ongoing continuous professional development and education. The way I see technology changing our lives in the next 5 or 10 years is right now, I think if this question had been asked last year, it would have been the same answer that I would have given the year before. But right now, because of everything that's happening and all the changes that we're seeing, I think we're going to see significant changes in the kinds of tasks that we are asked to do. I believe that some tasks are going to change completely from the way we do it. Just thinking about translation, I also believe that we need to develop a clear understanding and a strategy for what we're going to do so that we are not, we don't feel like we are victims of this change and everything that's going to happen. Because I don't know, I wish I had a crystal ball to know what is going to happen exactly, but we are seeing so many changes. And in fact, in this first few months of the year, there have been so many developments and so many things are coming up that I'm sure our landscape is going to change. And it has changed already, and it will continue to change also for interpreters. For me, for example, as a conference interpreter, the pandemic and the technological changes that came along with the pandemic brought a lot of opportunities, but they also closed some doors because some large conferences that used to happen every year in person have now been moved to remote. And so that has changed. But how can we prepare ourselves and how can newcomers prepare for what's happening? I would say that newcomers are actually going to be better prepared because they don't have the baggage of how things were and what to expect and trying to keep things the same. They are ready for whatever comes, whatever is coming next. So I would say maybe for the ones who have to be more intentional about how we're going to face this change are those of us who have been in the profession for a long time. And it may be a matter of sitting down and reevaluating our skills and saying, these are the skills that I have that can still be used for what's happening in the future. And these are the skills that might be a good idea to develop so that I'm better prepared for this. And I think we will see, we will lose clients, we will lose some types of jobs, but there will also be many other things that we will be able to do with the skills that we have. Thank you for watching this and see you at Leo 7. I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to say and what your thoughts are about technology and the future of our profession. See you then.